Hey, yo. Hey everyone, Andrew here, bringing you another video review, and today we're going to be doing a review of Resident Evil Afterlife. Now, Resident Evil Afterlife is the fourth movie in the Resident Evil film franchise, and I just saw it yesterday when it was released on the 10th in 3D, and I went with my girlfriend. Now, as you guys may know, a lot of you know, I'm a huge Resident Evil fan. I love the games. The games are absolutely fantastic. My second favorite game series. My favorite being obviously Zelda, but Resident Evil games have, great stories, great gameplay, great characters. Even the cheesy dialogue is great. Chris, there's so much blood. Silliness. But I love the video game series. But what you guys may not know is I like the movie series too. Yes, I do. A lot of people don't like the movie series for various different reasons, and I mean a lot of people, but I'm one of the few people out there that actually enjoy it. It's a take on the Resident Evil series while also going off and doing its own thing, and that's what I like. If everything's done the same, then there's really no difference with them. But with the Resident Evil movie series, they take elements from the Resident Evil universe, and they put it in a new universe where everything's different. And I enjoy that. And granted, it's not the best acting or over-the-top best writing. The action is fun, the stories are fun, and it takes itself seriously. Which, in that kind of movie franchise, you got to. Because if you don't take yourself seriously, you're just going to be a joke. So with that said, this is probably going to be a quick review. Let's go into plot. The plot basically picks up where it left off in Resident Evil 3, Extinction. In Extinction, the whole world is overrun with zombies. Alice is going after the Umbrella Corporation, and all the survivors, led by Claire, are going to a place called Arcadia, which offers food, shelter, no virus, and water. Basically, that stuff. The movie starts off with Alice in Japan, going after the Umbrella Corporation with all her clones. Eventually, she and Wesker have a little showdown. Wesker takes away her powers, they get separated, and she goes to Hollywood. There she lands on a building, and in between that time she finds Claire, and Claire lost her memory, and they find Arcadia wasn't where it was supposed to be. They go to Hollywood, they land on a building with some survivors, and they have to get from the building to a ship, which is actually called Arcadia. Arcadia wasn't actually a place, but a ship. And they have to go there, but the problem is there's billions of zombies overrunning them, and they need to find a way out quick before they die. Basic zombie movie, kind of. Obviously, we get introduced to new characters. Not all of them are going to live. So I'm really going to talk about the main characters of this. The plot, on a whole, is good. It was a little less about the Umbrella Corporation than I wanted, and more or less about surviving. It started off very nice, the plot. Alice going after Umbrella. I liked it. Really great. And then we go back to the survival aspect, where they have to survive all these zombies and get to Arcadia. And then eventually it picks up with the Umbrella stuff at the end, but it would have been nice if they dealt with nothing but Umbrella. But, hey, the plot on a whole has held its own. Characters. There's been a lot of characters in this movie, and all of them were pretty good. The new characters, the only one that really stood out is a guy named Luthor, who was a basketball player, and of course Chris Redfield gets introduced. But let's go down the line. We have Alice, who is played by the star Mila Jovovich, which I think is a great actress, a great action actress. When I first saw her in Fifth Element, I said, that girl right there, that girl is going to be a star. And she has been. I like to say she's been holding this movie series on her back. If it wasn't for her acting and her being in these movies, they probably wouldn't have lasted as long as they did. Now, a lot of people complain about her character Alice because she wasn't in the video games, but I think it's good to have a consistent main protagonist who isn't part of the video game series, because you can do your own thing with her. Alice in this is as Alice has always been. She is her brooding kind of self who is needs to kick Umbrella's ass and atone for what she did and all that kind of stuff. But Mila Jovovich plays her well. She looks pretty badass in this movie, and there's great action scenes with her, so I really have no complaints. One thing I have to say about these characters is they're not going to be overly that well-done characters. They're going to serve their purposes. And that's the thing for the Resident Evil movies. They have to serve their purposes. Claire was Claire. there wasn't anything really improved there, but nothing really taken away. They tried to do something with the whole amnesia thing, but didn't really work. Chris Redfield was introduced, and I actually liked Chris in this. I actually like Chris here more than I like him in the game, because Chris in the games has no personality. Chris in the movie actually had personality. Wesker was badass. I loved Wesker a lot. The only complaint I had with Wesker, spoiler, is that he has, like, in his mouth, you know, how they have the claw things come out and all that, like most of the T-virus monsters do, or G-virus monsters. Wesker never had that in the video games. I know that's really being picky, but the badass thing about Wesker in the video games was he was Wesker. You saw the evil right there. There wasn't anything hiding underneath his skin. He was the monster. And in the movie, the fact that he had something underneath his skin, a monster inside him, it kind of took away from the effect that he was a monster. But Wesker was a badass. Anyone else stood out? Jill did show up at the end, but she was only after the credits. At the very end, which I will tell you at the end of this video, and I will give you a spoiler, Jill does show up. But with that said, those are really basically the characters. There was a few other characters, but they really didn't make any of an impression. Except for the Luthor character, who was a basketball player, who was actually kind of cool. Let's talk about the action, because that's really what you go to the movies for, and how it affected with 3D. Now, I'm not a big fan of 3D. It's not that I hate it, but I really don't care for it. But the 3D actually worked out pretty well with this movie. The problem I have with 3D in general is that you get so used to it while you're in the movie theater. The first exposure I had to a 3D movie within recent years was the Beowulf movie. And I was watching the movie, and I was with my girlfriend and said, wow, this is pretty badass. But by the end of the movie, I got so used to 3D, I didn't even notice it. I like to say Resident Evil kind of did that, but at the same time, they did a good job to remind you that it was 3D. After certain points, you start to get used to it, but then you're like, oh, wait, this is 3D when something pops out at you. The action scenes were really good. I like the Wesker fight scenes. Alice was badass in this. The fight scenes, for the most part, was good. There weren't quite as many fighting zombies as they were fighting like Wesker or monsters like the Executioner and such. But on the whole, the fight scenes were good. Which really kind of brings me to what I felt about the movie, because that's basically all a Resident Evil movie is, fighting zombies. There's really not much to it. On the whole, I enjoyed the movie. I felt as though it was just as good as Extinction. It didn't quite live up to my expectations, though. Mostly because they did a few things that I didn't want them to do. But they did do a lot of things that I did like. They did make Wesker a complete, utter badass. They just kept on getting up after everything. Spoiler alert. Here we go. Spoiler alert. There's one point in the movie where Wesker is about to have his little claw things come out of his mouth and eat Alice. But Alice takes the shotgun and shoots him in the head, and his whole skull is taken out. And you think, oh, well, this is it. And then Chris and Claire start shooting him with bullets and all that stuff, and you think, ah, he's dead. And then he comes back to life, and he's fully healed and everything, which is just badass. You can't stop this guy. And then, again, spoiler alert. He's blown up at the very end of the movie, but my girlfriend's sitting there, and she kind of just says, you know, he's not dead. I'm like, you got a good point. He has survived all that stuff. She's like, yeah, you know he's not dead. So, you know, I liked how they did that, but I didn't like the claw things coming out of his mouth. Like I said before, I didn't like the fact that they didn't deal as much with Umbrella as I thought they should have. I thought they should have done a lot more about her infiltrating Umbrella and, you know, fighting off Umbrella and going up against the various different monsters. This is also the movie that felt the most disconnected from the video game franchise since Resident Evil 1. Sure, they had stuff like Wesker in there, and I paid a lot of tribute, especially with the fight scenes. There's one fight scene with Wesker, Claire, and Chris, which is very similar to fight scenes that were in Resident Evil 5 between Sheva, Wesker, and Chris. So they did pay tribute in that sense, but, I mean, it went into a whole completely different direction. At least Resident Evil 3, Extinction, had some homages with some characters like the Tyrant and going back to the mansion and all that jazz. On the whole, the movie is like a B. If you're a fan of action or a fan of Resident Evil like I am, you're going to enjoy the movie. If you want a movie that has a plot, and if you want a movie that actually is trying to go out of its way to be spectacular, this is not a movie for you. This is a movie for just mindless fighting fans, people that love mindless action. That's really the thing. Or people of the Resident Evil series. Like I said, I'm giving it a B, and that's a little generous. Maybe B, B minus, around that area. I would still recommend it to those people that like Resident Evil and do like Resident Evil action and action in general, but I mean, any other person probably won't enjoy it. My girlfriend went to see it with me, and she said it was better than she thought, which is good, but then again, she said it still wasn't good in her opinion. So it really comes down to those crowds. By the way, at the ending, just wait. Just watch the ending credits, because Jill shows up in the ending credits. So sit down and wait through the credits, because it's worth it to see her. So yeah, that's basically Resident Evil Afterlife. It was an okay movie if you're a Resident Evil fan. There was some good stuff in it, there was some blah stuff in it, but it held the Resident Evil franchise together, and apparently they might make another film if this one does well. So if you do enjoy the Resident Evil film series like I do, go watch it, support the film, and they stated that if they do another film, they might have Leon in it, and Leon's a fucking man. So with that said, I'm going to end this video. I gotta go play some more Batman Brave and the Bold, the video game. It is a good game. You'd be surprised. With that said, I'm going to end this video here. This is Andrew saying peace out for now.